Good evening and welcome to On the Record Decision 2017, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balanced, true and open debate they've been looking for. We are just 2 weeks shy of Election Day, and it seems every day the allegations of scandals, corruptions, and conflicts mount. Candidates are being accused of all sorts of corrupt practices, and cabinet ministers are not exempt from the same. Should these individuals be forced to back out of the race and or be made to answer for these allegations? We will discuss conflicts and corruption tonight with Sidney Colley, chairman of the FNM, the PLP's chairman Bradley Roberts, along with Rudy Dean, the DNA's candidate for Golden Gates. The nation is screaming for accountability from our leaders and their candidates of choice. But as they scream, May 10th approaches and a new or refreshed government will be voted in. Will it be more of the same that our communities speak of, or a team worthy to represent the people? It's all on the record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Tonight's show is no doubt very sensitive as it highlights some of the allegations and accusations that abound on the brink of the country's general elections, some of these involving cabinet ministers. We are neither judge nor jury here at On the Record. However, we want to bring the stories as they have appeared. Here's our Vonic Toot to get us started.
The term gutter politics has taken on a whole new meaning this election cycle, as some political parties and their supporters are seemingly willing to do whatever it takes to bury their opponents. These days, voters wake up to new social media memes spewing false and defamatory information, while controversial documents are leaked to the media almost daily. One of the latest controversies to be splashed across newspapers is Education Minister Jerome Fitzgerald's 2013 email exchange with then Bahamar developer Sarkis Ismerlian.
Member of Parliament Jerome Fitzgerald had his emails to Bahamar developer Sarkis Ismerlian printed in the Tribune newspaper. The emails showed that Fitzgerald sought to lock down Bahamar contracts, which would have gotten his family's company some big bucks.
Fitzgerald claims he communicated with Ismerlian on behalf of his ill father, who had engaged in talks with Bahamar to secure work. The Free National Movement wasted no time calling for Fitzgerald's resignation, branding the emails a clear conflict of interest.
We now see that Jerome Fitzgerald wasn't telling the truth about trying to do business at Bahamar while he was negotiating on behalf of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. He first denied this, but the truth has come out.
Menace has also called for Attorney General Alison Maynard Gibson to be fired over her daughter's business interest in Bahamar. But not so fast, says DNA leader Branville McCartney, who asserted that the FNM is no stranger to scandal. The party's leader came under heavy fire back in 2015 after checks revealed that the Public Hospitals Authority paid thousands of dollars in rent to a company Menace was president of while he served as Minister of Health under the last FNM government. And McCartney says that's not all.
I see where the leader of the FNM has been calling for Mr. Fitzgerald's resignation. But he would recall he also called for Renwood Wells' resignation of the $650 million LOI. And when Renwood Wells decided or was asked to step down from his position in the PLP, and then he eventually left the PLP and went to the FNM, the leader of the opposition said he was satisfied with what Renwood Wells had to say, but the Bahamian people, they really don't need to know.
Even more controversies are bound to hit the headlines in the final stretch to Election Day. However, numerous church leaders have called for calm heads to prevail, pointing out that no matter who is victorious on May 10th, we must all coexist after Election Day.
Each of us must look within ourselves, and if it was our daughters or sons who were a part of the different campaigns, would we want to destroy them in such a manner? And it lowers the level of the electorate. It brings us to a place where it's mudslinging and not really presenting positions and opinions that will lift the country to where it needs to be.
Thanks, Vonik. You heard it right here on the record. We will be back with a hot discussion right after this break.
On the Record is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
This is us. We all live here. And while we don't think of ourselves as numbers, in the grand scheme of things, numbers are part of who we are. Like your phone number, for instance. That's why at Alive we believe you should keep your number when you switch. Go in store today and ask an Alive Switch Angel. They'll make it real simple for you. We are alive.
Bahamar. The PLP struck a secret deal with their Chinese cronies to open it, then had the court seal all the documents. What are they hiding? For years, as families suffered through power outages, the PLP continued powering a vacant Bahamar. Then we learned their secret deal waived the onerous VAT tax for their Chinese allies, even though Bahamians still pay the tax. Broken promises, secret deals. The PLP had their chance. Now, it's the people's time.
Enrollment for NHI Bahamas starts April 24th, where you can pick your preferred primary care doctor. You must have an NIB Smart Card to enroll, be a Bahamian citizen or legal resident, and have proof of residency in the Bahamas for the last 6 months. If you have a private insurance plan, you should also provide your policy group ID and member ID number. However, persons who do not have private insurance can still enroll for NHI Bahamas. You can complete the enrollment form online or in person at one of our enrollment locations. For more information, visit nhibahamas.gov.bs.
I'm ready for modern, affordable, accessible healthcare for all Bahamians.
I'm NHI ready.
I'm ready. Enrollment for NHI will begin in 2017. But you will need your NIB Smart Card to be eligible.
I'm ready to pick my doctor in 2017 in the public or private sector.
I'm registered for NHI and I'm ready.
With my NIB Smart Card, I'm ready to enroll.
Over the past 20 years, the FNM and the PLP have traded power. Every election, we get the same broken promises. Yet, the dump still burns today, and unemployment is at a record high. Politicians in both parties are getting richer and richer while our economy plunders, and the cost of living keeps getting higher. It's time to ask yourself, how safe are you and your family? And how promising does the future look ahead of you? You have a choice between going back to the same failed leadership or going in a new direction. A vote for the DNA is a vote for hope and change for a better life.
Welcome back to On the Record. We are only 2 weeks outside of the general elections, and the scandals and serious allegations are emerging almost daily. Joining us to discuss some of those allegations, the DNA's candidate for Golden Gates, Mr. Rudy Dean, a well-established realtor, the FNM's chairman, Sidney Cawley, a noted attorney and former FNM cabinet minister, as well as businessman and former PLP cabinet minister, Bradley Roberts, the PLP's chairman. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on. We have an esteemed panel tonight with a very hot topic. Over the past few weeks, almost daily, we open the morning papers or turn on the news, and there is some allegation of some conflict or corruption related to individuals, it seems, across party lines. I wanted to start out by really establishing what is a conflict of interest within government and politics from a party perspective, particularly you gentlemen who have served in the cabinet of the Bahamas. Really, from that perspective, what is considered to be a conflict?
Well, thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. Every cabinet minister, on the first day you enter cabinet, you're given a manual for cabinet governance. And the 9B of the manual says that no cabinet minister is to take any benefits from any company, entity, or individual who is directly in negotiations with the government or who has any dealings with the government, and that cabinet minister must not do so on behalf of himself or any family member. If a cabinet minister is found in contravention of this rule, that is a classic conflict of interest.
Mr. Roberts, I want to ask you this. As a businessman having ties in a small community, once you enter the cabinet of the Bahamas, that seems almost a next to impossible task, it would seem, because you're already involved in business, you are connected. How do you separate the two?
Well, it's very difficult to separate because of the size of the population of the Bahamas. Everybody knows everybody, and everybody is friendly with everybody. And so indeed it is a difficult charge. I served for 5 years, and all sorts of people came to me with representation to assist them here and assist them there, from both sides of the political divide. Not excluding you, Rudy, all weren't in existence at the time. But one tried to his best to try and avoid conflicts of interest. And some people come on in a very strong way, say, this could be in it for you. I had to toss a fellow to my office at one time. I said, my brother, I don't need that kind of assistance. Please, get the hell out of here. And I did it.
What about in an instance where you have, let's say, a family business, or you have a business that is involved in some kind of work relative to government or government contract or something of that nature? What is the law?
One of the things that a cabinet minister ought to do is full and frank disclosure. He should disclose to his prime minister, you put me in this cabinet, and this is the situation. I have an interest, or my family member have an interest, and disclose the interest. Then it is up to the prime minister to decide in the face of that, and also you ought to disclose his cabinet colleagues, because if a cabinet minister becomes tainted because of the principle of collective responsibility, it washes over the whole cabinet. So you ought to fully disclose.
But it goes further than that. You not only have to disclose at the cabinet level, you must also disclose in the House of Assembly if you have any interest in any contracts.
Absolutely.
So
and get the leave of your colleagues in the House of Assembly.
Right. That's correct.
Yes.
So, Mr. Dean, let me get you in on this discussion. How do you view, you have the position, well, you and I have the position of having never served in a cabinet. Right. But how do you view all of this? And given the opportunity, what would you do differently, or what would the DNA do differently to ensure that this discussion doesn't even come up again?
Yeah, thank you, Jerome. First, thank you for inviting me. And I think it's a great opportunity to be here. You know, the rules are set, the rules are clear, and the major problem that we have is enforcement. You know, everybody turns a blind eye to, you know, what is already written. And so, you know, what the DNA will do, you would see a new type of government. You would see enforcement. You would see, you know, prosecution. You would see, you know, the rules of the law being followed to the T.
Okay. I want to speak specifically now to Education Minister Jerome Fitzgerald, who has found himself in a pickle. He's accused of using his position as a government minister to ask for favors of an investor. One headline has said he hasn't admitted guilt. Mr. Roberts, I'm going to start with you because this is squarely at the feet of your party. What is the party's position on this situation with Minister Fitzgerald?
Well, I have spoken out on this matter. I was approached by the press. As I understand it, first let me say that I know Jerome Fitzgerald's father longer than I knew the Minister of Education. And I know him to be in the business of custom clearance and also limousine service.
But these were pre-existing?
For a long period of time, yes.
Okay.
And unfortunately, Fitzgerald Sr. Fell ill with a very terrible stroke. And he's still in the process of recovery. And as I understand it, he had made representation to Sarkis Ismailian to try and get some of the business in those two areas. Now, as to the quantum I see in the newspapers, I never thought that kind of business generated millions of dollars. That in itself is foolishness, okay? And he made representation to Mr. Ismailian, and as I said, his father fell ill. So Jerome was following up on what his father initially started.
So
as I understand it, nothing came out of it. He got his father's business, got nothing from his seeking to get some business. Nothing happened.
Let's put it in context. There was an existing business that the father had with limousine and brokerage service.
That is correct.
His father fell ill. Minister then picked up on the application to, or the
He was
interest.
asked by his father to follow up on the
and he
matter.
began emailing, Sarkis is mailing the investor at Bahama.
That's correct.
Okay, Mr. Colley.
I see the line that the PLP is taking, just listening to Mr. Roberts' comments, and I take note of Mr. Fitzgerald's comment at the rally in Andros last night, where he said, they can't touch me now. I take a different line, a different approach. To be seen as a cabinet minister, to be seen to be engaging in any form of contract or any form of business where the party on the other side has direct dealing with the government and the ministers involved, it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. It doesn't matter. Mr. Fitzgerald, I'm sure, has other family members who could very well have taken up where his father left off. But by virtue of being sitting in a chair in the cabinet, it's a classic breach. There's no excuse for it.
Mr. Dean?
Yes. Corruption is one of the major issues facing this country today. Corruption costs this country anywhere from $300 to $400 million a year. And so what we have to do, we have to put an end to this, because it is costing the Bahamian people, it is costing the taxpayers money because of this. And so what the DNA government will do, we will put in place good governance.
Well, Mr. Dean, do you accept, or is the party's position that Minister Fitzgerald was involved in nefarious activities? Is that your position?
Well, I mean, the rules of the law is very clear. You know, no cabinet minister is supposed to be involved in any business dealings, you know, once they cabinet minister.
Mr. Roberts?
Even if they get the approval of the Prime Minister, as the rule states?
Well, that would be something different.
Okay.
But the Prime Minister has remained mum on this. As far as I'm aware, I haven't seen any statement or heard.
Could it be that you jump into a conclusion?
Let me just finish. I haven't heard any statement publicly from the Prime Minister on this issue, and I haven't read anything in the press. What I've read in the press is that many attempts have been made to goad the Prime Minister to comment, but he has remained silent. The question is, why is he silent? One of his senior ministers has been accused of a very serious conflict of interest and corruption. And the Prime Minister has a duty to this country to speak out to it.
Is there degrees of conflict of interest? Mr. Colley called it serious. Is there some minor one? Could he, if there is, could he give us some description of that, please?
Should the Prime Minister say something? Should he speak to this issue?
Well, the Prime Minister is never short on words, you know. He's never short on words. But let me say, as far as I'm concerned, this is a non-issue, okay?
Why?
Because he got no benefit, the family got no benefit, all right? And if he was that powerful and could influence the situation, couldn't he have?
The question is, Mr. Fitzgerald, Mr. Sawyer. Mr. Roberts says he got no benefit.
Nothing.
But the door was open to get benefit. He didn't get any benefit as far as the records show because of the way things played out. But it could very well have played out where millions of dollars could have inured to the benefit of the minister and his family. And that is the reason why the tenet in the manual of cabinet government is there, not even to approach it. You are, as a cabinet minister, to remain above reproach.
Mr. Sawyer, he certainly just now said millions of dollars in custom brokerage and in the limousine service. I'd like to see him quantify where that kind of money would be generated.
Mr. Roberts,
I mean, it's so ridiculous.
But do you accept that maybe somebody else should have made representation to avoid what he would have said there, even the appearance?
I don't know. You will have to ask the Honorable Minister that. He knew Mrs. Malin. I knew Mrs. Malin as well, too. All of us met him. I don't know whether any of of the minister's family ever met the man, and that is why his daddy asked him. But we got more serious problems I'd like to talk about here today.
Mr. Roberts talked about whether the Prime Minister, knew about it or not. See, they are employed by the Bahamian people. It is the Bahamian people who really should be the ones we, be accountable to. And so, right now, all these things are out there, and still, there's still not enough information to show, what has happened.
Would you like to see something definitive said by the Prime Minister?
Of course, absolutely.
And what would you like? What do you think that should be, or what action do you think should be taken, if any?
Well, I mean, the rules are very clear. If there is a breach, then there should be consequences.
Also, as this story, and we're going to move on shortly, as this story was beginning to unfold, there were two ministers within government who were tied to some activities related to Bama. In addition to Minister Fitzgerald, there was also an accusation levied against Attorney General Alison Maynard Gibson for family's interest in businesses in Bahama. I want us to sort of speak to that as well, Mr. Roy.
Well, as I understand it, the AG's husband is the owner of a company that has been operating at Paradise Island, Bay Street, and elsewhere. And they applied for, Max Gibson applied for stores in the new hotel. That's normal, straightforward business. He did so when we were in government the last time and there was expansion over at Paradise Island. If it was okay then, how come it ain't okay now?
My comment on that is, on the face of it, Max and his empire has done nothing wrong. They are businessmen. They are looking to ply their business in the best position. They had an opportunity to negotiate a lease at the Bahama. Or if you stop there, it's nothing wrong. But if Max's wife, who is the Attorney General, is given a high-profile position to travel to China to negotiate with the Bahama for various things on behalf of the government, that is where the issue arises. That is where Bahamian people are saying, is there a classic case of conflict, or is there the spirit of conflict? Right. We cannot say, I cannot say as a lawyer that there's a classic case of conflict. But what I do say is in the court of public opinion, there is an appearance of conflict.
There's a common saying that not only must justice be done, but it must also seem to be done. And so, in this case, there are many blurred lines, and it all comes back down to transparency, openness, and the rule of law.
Let me give you a classic example of conflict of interest within a government. The New Providence Road program that got started under the Free National Movement. That program ended up extending itself to a company in which Brent Simonet and his family were major shareholders. Major shareholders. Huge sums of money was involved in that transaction. That is a fact. But I am told that man, Brent been in that business a long time. What does Mr. Colley say to that, sir?
I have no facts. I have no facts other than what have been out in the public domain by Mr. Roberts and other detractors of Brent Simonet, of his involvement. I am aware, based on some information I have, that Brent and family members had shares in the company that helped to build the road, and those shares were in existence long before he became a cabinet minister. The question is, and I don't know the answer, is whether or not that was disclosed to the then Prime Minister as a part of his cabinet responsibility.
But Mr. Colley was a part of that cabinet for a while, and I would think that he would have greater knowledge than he is suggesting that he doesn't have.
No, I'm saying, was it disclosed to the Prime Minister?
And you are unaware of whether it was disclosed?
I am unaware.
Okay.
Jerome, see, all this proves is that the PLP and the FNM are the same. Two sides of the same coin. I mean, the hands, I mean, it's like everything they touch, ends in some type of, issue. And so, this is why the DNA keeps saying that, there has to be a better way. Because, the Bahamian people are sick and tired of this going on time after time.
Gentlemen, we are at the point of our first break in the show. I assure you that we have lots more to talk about. Mr. Roberts, I know that you have come to speak to some other things as well, but I wanted to get the situation regarding the cabinet out of the way. But there's certainly lots more issues of conflict and alleged corruption. Stay with us. We are back on the record right after this break.
Over the past 20 years, the FNM and the PLP have traded power. Every election, we get the same broken promises. Yet, the dump still burns today, and unemployment is at a record high. Politicians in both parties are getting richer and richer while our economy plunders, and the cost of living keeps getting higher. It's time to ask yourself, how safe are you and your family? And how promising does the future look ahead of you? You have a choice between going back to the same failed leadership or going in a new direction. A vote for the DNA is a vote for hope and change, for a better life.
What are you doing?
Calling the bank to order more checks.
Go to epbahamas.com and order your checks from Executive Printers.
Executive Printers. We're the authority in business and personal check printing in the Bahamas. Come in and see one of our specialists or visit us online at epbahamas.com to design and order your checks today.
I'm free to live my life, yeah. Free to be me, yeah. The way I wanna be. Doing the things that I wanna do.
Yes, I'm living my life. Hey, BAF for life. Yes, I'm living my life. Hey, BAF for life.
For life, BAF has got you covered.
Today, it's who you know, not how hard you work. But change is coming. The FNM will make sure everyone has a level playing field. We'll invest in local businesses that employ Bahamians, putting us in charge of our own destiny. We did it in our hospitals, promoting Bahamians to top spots. Now, we'll do it with our businesses. Reform, opportunity, empowerment, change is coming. We'll show the career politicians it's the people's time.
Welcome back to more On the Record. Our guests for this evening, Mr. Bradley Roberts, the PLP's chairman, Sidney Colley, the chairman of the FNM, and Mr. Rudy Dean of the DNA running in the upcoming general election. Gentlemen, we are talking about conflicts and corruption. Mr. Dean, you've been sort of commenting now on what's been happening within the two parties, but I want to bring to light a situation within the DNA. One of your candidates, Mario Lockhart, some pictures, some illicit pictures, were circulated via social media and the media just recently with him. I want to talk a little about that and really what effect that has had on the party.
No, I mean, it's an innocent situation simply because...
An innocent situation, sir?
Those pictures were taken outside the country. And the weapon that was shown, it was a legal firearm. And
it was illegal?
Yeah, illegal, right, not illegal.
Okay.
Right. And we have a copy of the registration, it belonged to a friend in the U.S. And so all those things were taken in the U.S. Mr. Lockhart, he was a security for, high level clients who went to certain places. And so, it's an innocent situation.
Is that the kind of image, though, you want of a candidate going into an election?
Well, I mean, we all have our past, but it's the future that we have to look forward to. Mr. Lockhart is not the same man that he was then. And sometimes, these things help make you a better person. And so, we stand strongly behind him.
Stand behind him. Gentlemen?
I have no comment.
No comment?
The pictures tell the story.
I just want to say, Mr. Dan was high and mighty a minute ago about the FNM and the PLP are two sides of the same coin, and here we are. He is giving excuses for the lifestyle of one of his own candidates. He says it's in the past. But the question has to be asked when a member of the public is standing for election to Parliament or on social media, forget about the women, but touting a firearm in the time that we live in, it doesn't paint a good picture. And if the leader of the DNA wants to excuse him and put him forward, the Bahamian people will deal with that.
Mr. Roberts, as you said, you have the pictures speak for themselves.
Yes, they do.
Okay, well, let's move on now. Also, recently in the media, Mr. Dionisio D'Aguila, the FNM's candidate for Free Time, altering invoices for 27 washing machines back in 2014. It was found out by customs, and he had to pay a fine. Mr. Roberts, I know that you would have brought that information forward. I want you to speak to that.
Yes, that is true. The information came into my possession. I thought it very strange that a man who has the kind of belt like Mr. D'Aguila would even stoop so low to try and to save money for his business. And particularly as he is the one who's always criticizing the government, saying that we shouldn't introduce VAT, we should go in and we should recoup whatever taxes they owed as uncollected and so forth. But he gave the excuse that it was done by an unscrupulous, he says, broker. Well, I got news from Mr. D'Aguila. Wait for Sunday. Wait for Sunday. They're going to let the rest of it hang out.
So there's more?
Yes, sir, there is.
Mr. Cawley.
Mr. D'Aguila has answered in full the allegation. He has given the explanation of how it came about. He has acknowledged that when it came to his attention and a fine was levied, he paid the fine, and he fired the broker. Mr. D'Aguila also puts on the table that the government now owes him over $300,000 in taxes which he's paid, which he has to be refunded. So
I understand that is a bogus claim, that the duty was the correct one. For commercial equipment, the duty remains at 45%. He is misguided in that regard, sir.
I hear you. I hear you. I'm telling you what Mr. D'Aguila says. That's his position.
Mr. Dino, are you satisfied with the response that Mr. D'Aguila gave?
No.
Why not?
What we need to see, let's see, let the chips fall where they may, Put the documents on the table, let us see exactly where they are, and let us determine, who's telling the truth.
As businessmen, gentlemen, is it not ultimately your responsibility to ensure that any documents being put forth on behalf of your business, if anything, are correct?
It most certainly is, and that's why he ended up was obliged to pay the fine. But the real fact, the real reason why that came to be is what I was promoting. That someone had to come up with this concept of how they were going to fraud the Bahamian government. Who got the documents first, the invoices first? Who passed them on to somebody else so that they can make some changes? And after the changes was made, and you write your check and say, oh my God, something is wrong here. There's something wrong. And you don't pick it up yourself. And you being a CPA yourself, you don't know when somebody is fooling around.
No comment.
No comment, Mrs. Dean? To you? Okay, well, let's move forward. We've got lots more. FNM's North Eleuthera candidate, Ricky Mackey, accused of importing a stolen Infinity G.
Yeah. Ricky Mackey has produced for us a bill of sale from a Bahamian living in Old Fort Bay who has sold a high-end Infinity car to him. He had it licensed and he owned it for a while, and as soon as it came to his attention that the car was stolen, he turned it into the police. We have documentary evidence that Dion Smith was caught in the same
That's my next point.
theft ring, and when the time is right, we will put our documentary evidence on the table as well. Finally, we have circumstantial evidence that Kalish Roll also is a victim of the same theft ring. And so Mr. Mackey acknowledges that he was victimized. He paid good money for the vehicle for his wife. When it came to his knowledge that it was the subject of a ring of stolen vehicles, he turned it in.
And you used the word victim. So you're acquiescing that in all cases these gentlemen were victims.
I would put it like this. If you have the documentary proof from the Broward County Police Department, and you have the documentary evidence of the customs and other government and police government officials, you will see that there was a ring of theft vehicles emanating from Fort Lauderdale and Freeport and Nassau. Mr. Mackey's vehicle was not imported by him. The vehicle was already in Nassau, and he bought it from a private citizen. My message to private citizens are, when you buy a used vehicle, even if you buy it from another private person, make sure you get the bill, not just the bill of sale, but the certificate of title, because the certificate of title follows the car.
Gentlemen, should we really be having this kind of discussion with men who are offering themselves for public office?
Let me say, Jerome, I differ with what happened in this matter regarding Mr. Ricky Mackey. Mr. Mackey, when I disclosed that he hadn't paid outstanding customs duty that was due back until 2001, I announced at the time there was more to come. And I believe that sent a signal to Mr. Mackey. He knew, I believe, that car was stolen. And immediately after he made that disclosure, he took the car to the police. That was the sequence of things. What is interesting is that the customs has not been able to establish that car was imported into the Bahamas. No records of it. How the car got licensed is another question for Mr. Mackey to disclose, because there's no record in the Road Traffic Department. This thing is deeper than than the chairman of the FNM wants to do.
How do you speak to Dion Smith's situation? Is this different?
I tell you what Dion Smith told me. I spoke to him. He said he bought his car via a bank. That's what he told me. Mm-hmm. But I see, according to the Tribune's report, the car is back in Florida. Mm-hmm. But where's Mr. Mackey's car? It's still here in the Bahamas.
You know, Jerome, all this points to is corrupt people and corrupt systems. And what the DNA government will do, we will eliminate all of this in our system, because, you know, we keep hearing about all this corruption and nobody's prosecuted. What happens? How is this possible? How could so much corruption exist in the entire country and nothing happens?
Rudy, don't say, it's not fair to say that nobody is prosecuted, because the only person in recent time who was prosecuted for corruption was a former senator of the Free National Movement and a candidate for the Free National Movement. That played out in public view for everybody. So don't say that nobody's been prosecuted. That is the corruption of record.
Right, but see, that's an isolated incident. We're talking about.
But you say nobody, and now you're going to isolate it.
We're talking about gross, incidents throughout the country. How could only we have one incident of prosecution when, it is, there's so much corruption that is in the system. You know, we're talking about broken systems. We're talking about inefficient systems. We're talking about corrupt people. And, you know, there's nothing that is happening. And this is why we need somebody from the outside to come in and fix this. And this is why the DNA government will do that.
Me outside of the Bahamas?
We don't need anyone from the outside.
No, outside of the PLP and FNM, because the PLP and FNM, you know, the examples you just pointed to were PLPs and FNMs.
The chairman for the PLP has pointed to a FNM senator who was prosecuted, but he failed to point out that a PLP member of parliament went to jail for corruption. Mr. Wilbert Morse went to jail for corruption.
Yes, that is correct. He went to jail and was during the PLP's tenure in office. Yeah. He was prosecuted during the PLP's tenure in office.
No, my point is he was prosecuted.
But the point is that the PLP...
He was prosecuted by the courts of the Bahamas for corruption. He was convicted and sentenced.
And the PLP was in power at the time.
Gentlemen, we have in the past had two separate commissions of inquiry. There was a lot of information dredged up in those. In those, Dr. Ministers indicated that under his leadership, he will attempt to bring more and to prosecute.
The new FNM government will examine what has been disclosed and what has not been disclosed, and information which we have, And if there are criminal culpability, the law will take its course. That's a promise from the leader of the Free National Movement.
Mr. Danger, you buy that?
No, I don't buy that at all, because you see, what we have, like Mr. Roberts pointed out, our society is so small and so close-knitted and so entangled. We have PLPs doing business with F&Ms and everybody all doing, they all wrapped up in one big package. And so, the PLP is not going to prosecute the F&M, and the F&M not going to prosecute the PLP. And so, because they're all the same. They're all mixed up in this all big, web of, corruption, if I could put it like that. So we're not going to see nothing happen.
Mr. Roberts, I want to press the rewind button. Going into the 2007 election, a cabinet minister at the time, Shane Gibson, was caught up in an international scandal involving Anna Nicole Smith and the fast tracking of her immigration status. He eventually stepped down as minister going into that election. Now, just recently, his name has resurfaced again, receiving checks from another gentleman who has been caught up in a series of scandals prior to this. People are saying this is more of the same.
Let me say this. I want to be very clear on this one. When the F&M came to power in 2007, the then Prime Minister directed about a dozen senior police officers to carry out an investigation of Shane Gibson from top to bottom. It went on for 6 months, all the 9 months. They came out with zero, absolutely nothing. Shane Gibson's father, King Eric, who is now deceased, has been a friend of the gentleman Nygaard from the time he came here over 30 years ago. Nygaard is a permanent resident of the Bahamas. He has the right to give money to whoever he wants to. The money that was disclosed, Shane Gibson was in opposition at that time. He has told the public what he did with the money. There's nothing wrong with that. By the same token, the money that the F&M gets from their friends as well too. And no small amount of money.
I have a different take. Shane Gibson is also a cabinet minister, subject to the same tenet of cabinet responsibility and full disclosure. Shane Gibson, it's no secret, was the recipient of $90,000+ from Peter Nygaard, who at the time was negotiating with the Bahamas government for the grant of Crown land. Under the law, Peter Nygaard stood to benefit. And Shane Gibson is no different from Jerome Fitzgerald as a cabinet minister when Shane Gibson either begged or asked or solicited monies from Mr. Peter Nygaard, who is doing business with the government. Furthermore, his money was deposited in a foreign bank account, which leaves a number of questions unanswered as to the regulations under the central bank. And in addition, the deposits were monthly of $5,000 each. Under the central bank regulations, there are certain requirements for each transaction. So Shane Gibson is in a web of international and national situations. So it is not as simple, with the greatest of respect, as my Mr. Roberts would like to make it.
That is all speculative. If you had any proof whatsoever, why don't you process it through the channels to make a determination as to what you is alleging is true, sir?
Just hold on.
Either put up or shut up. Let me say this, sir.
Just hold on, Mr. Roberts.
Yes,
if
sir.
you ask me for proof...
Yes, sir, but bring it in. Bring it on.
It'll come.
Bring it on, sir.
Okay.
All right, sir.
Well, the only
let me continue this. Shane, this gentleman, Mr. Nygaard, has not only friends in the PLP, but in the F&M. Former Deputy Prime Minister Frank Watson was as close to Mr. Nygaard, or it still is, as Shane Gibson is, and has received a funding from Mr. Nygaard.
Mr. Colley, this whole situation with Peter Nygaard has even led to the resignation of the former chairman, which is, and it speaks to now this whole name and association coming across party lines.
You're talking about Mr. Pintard?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Michael
Yes,
Pintard
sir.
resigned as a
Who
result
is now
of
being brought back, dusted off, and made a candidate for the FNM without any explanation at all to the Bahamian people.
You are now directing that question to me, right?
Yes, sir.
The one, what's your question?
No, sir. You, on the table, you have said that Mr. Gibson should not have been receiving these payments from Peter Nygaard. But this whole Peter Nygaard issue has really wrapped in the FNM as well, because that situation regarding Mr. Nygaard and Save the Bays has mushroomed and resulted in the resignation of your former chairman. How do you respond to that?
It is a fact that Michael Pintard resigned his position as chairman and a senator. The court case and the grand conspiracy involving certain PLPs and Save the Bays and Mr. Nygaard is now a subject matter in the court. There are a host of affidavits from all sorts of persons that contains salacious and scary details. But because that's a matter of the court, I am going to leave it there.
Allow me to on the discussion. You've been quiet for a while. Go ahead. This really ain't your fight. Go ahead.
Like I said, two sides of the same coin. But anyway, in the DNA platform, we will implement campaign finance reform. We will tighten the declaration, of politicians. We will tighten the entire system.
But your position on all of this, I mean, you've heard, you said two sides of the same coin. Yes. I need you to get in on this discussion. Your position on this whole situation regarding Mr. Nygaard and both parties.
We will launch an investigation into all politicians, past, present, and everyone else. You never know. But we will launch an investigation, and we will get to the bottom of any corruption that has happened, because politicians have to be accountable. When they take that out, they ought to be accountable for that. And the Bahamian people, everyone take the Bahamian people for a joke, but the Bahamian people are our employers. The Bahamian people are the ones who we are responsible to.
The Bahamian people elect the people they want to represent them. All right, they're not fools.
That's not.
All right, sir, they are not fools. On May the 10th. They will, in their wisdom, cast the ballots for the candidate of their choice. And you cannot call their decision foolish.
I'm not. That don't wash well with me. Simply because we talking politics.
We also talking about rights. It is a voter right to vote for the candidate of their choice.
Regardless how corrupt they are.
Pink, blue, yellow, any color.
Regardless how corrupt they are.
Gentlemen, conflict and corruption with our guests Rudy Dean, Sidney Cawley, and Bradley Roberts. Let's go to a break. Right now, we'll return with more on this discussion on the record right after this.
This segment is sponsored by Percy's Island Game.
Over the past 20 years, the FNM and the PLP have traded power. Every election, we get the same broken promises. Yet, the dump still burns today, and unemployment is at a record high. Politicians in both parties are getting richer and richer while our economy plunders, and the cost of living keeps getting higher. It's time to ask yourself, how safe are you and your family? And how promising does the future look ahead of you? You have a choice between going back to the same failed leadership or going in a new direction. A vote for the DNA is a vote for hope and change, for a better life.
Enrollment for NHI Bahamas starts April 24th, where you can pick your preferred primary care doctor. You must have an NIB Smart Card to enroll, be a Bahamian citizen or legal resident, and have proof of residency in the Bahamas for the last 6 months. If you have a private insurance plan, you should also provide your policy group ID and member ID number. However, persons who do not have private insurance can still enroll for NHI Bahamas. You can complete the enrollment form online or in person at one of our enrollment locations. For more information, visit nhibahamas.gov.bs.
Enrollment for NHI will begin in 2017
but you need your NIB Smart Card to be eligible.
I have my NIB Smart Card, and I'm ready.
I'm ready to pick my doctor in 2017 in the public or private sector.
I'm ready for modern, affordable, accessible healthcare for all Bahamians.
I'm ready for NHI.
NHI Bahamas. I'm ready. Are you?
Go to your local NIB office for your smart card.
Over the past 20 years, the FNM and the PLP have traded power. Every election, we get the same broken promises. Yet, the dump still burns today, and unemployment is at a record high. Politicians in both parties are getting richer and richer while our economy plunders, and the cost of living keeps getting higher. It's time to ask yourself, how safe are you and your family? And how promising does the future look ahead of you? You have a choice between going back to the same failed leadership or going in a new direction. A vote for the DNA is a vote for hope and change for a better life.
Call your people to a higher place. Challenge your followers to behave themselves. Do not condone it when no one's looking, because it suits your purposes. We're in this together. We only have one Bahamas. And I don't know about you, but I don't have any other country to go to.
Welcome back to On the Record. Anglican Bishop Leish Boyd, he's the Bishop of the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos Islands, says he's horrified at the practice of what he terms gutter politics during the lead up to the general elections. Well, what do you think of what he has said? Is it really gutter politics, or can these allegations actually pan out into real life situations of corruption? Gentlemen, we have discussed a lot thus far on all sides. Are we really at that point of gutter politics in our country?
Well, the Venerable Bishop has a higher calling. He's an ecclesiastical man, and he is supposed to be the sentinel at the gate for the country. And so he is performing his duties and calling for basically a good, clean, fair election. Politicians know from empirical data that negative campaigning works, but the negative campaigning does not mean gutter politics. Negative campaigning means you look for issues that favor you and are disadvantageous to your opponent, and you accentuate those. But also, you put your party's position in its public policy and its agenda. And so I concur with the bishop. I have not seen the gutter politics, not yet. I have seen very strong positions put by all sides, but I haven't seen anything that's offensive. Perhaps the paraphernalia, the destruction of parties' paraphernalia. Both the PLP and the FNM, in the person of Mr. Roberts and myself, have been on the record of discouraging those kinds of actions from our supporters and the general public. But generally, the bishop is right. We need to keep it high, at a high standard.
Mr. Dean?
Yes, I think he's absolutely correct. You know, politics is considered a blood sport, and there are basically no rules. You know, you go as low as you go. But as a candidate, you know, in particular, in Golden Gate, I've stayed away from that. I've presented my plans to the people. I presented myself, and I showed them.
No negative campaigning against you.
Because you see, Bahamian people are not stupid. Bahamian people, they whatever's out there is out there. They know it. I don't need to be the one to tell them about it. But what I've shown them is a better way, a better life, and that's what we're all about.
Mr. Roberts, you have been the architect of quite a few bombshells, as you have termed them, that have come out against the Free National Movement's candidates.
Well, I'm not sure my bombshells fall in the category as gutter politics, because I believe that every candidate should be able to stand up to public scrutiny. I believe that very deeply. I, however, cannot disagree with the bishop when he talks generally about some of the things that has happened. And I think he was sending a warning that we ought to be careful. The Prime Minister has been telling the Bahamian people that be careful in what we say about one another, because we live in this society and we will have to live with each other after this election is over. one could take the high moral ground. Like, for example, in the United States, in the recent presidential election, Michelle Obama, the wife of the former president, said when they go low, she go high. But you saw what happened to the Democratic candidate, Hillary Clinton. She lost, all right? But she seemed to be a very happy lady, and I'm sure that she feels no, she isn't deterred by that. That in the end, what you call it?
Can you, I mean, I think you just alluded to it, but can you really run a successful campaign when you constantly take in the high moral ground?
It'd be a little difficult in doing so. Because you look, for example, in my case, I have a file on each and every candidate.
You have a file?
Yes, but I keep the clippings over the years. So I have a photographic, what you call it, sequence of them. And I know what they say, when they said it, etc., and so forth. And, you know, if I see I could use some of that in my advantage, using the same words against them, I don't think anything is wrong with that.
No,
Mr. Cody, is there a file in the FNM?
No, we have files.
You have files?
We are a major political party. We have files and backup files. But, you know, talking about going high and going low, I mean, one of Mr. Roberts' candidates on the media says, when they go high, you shoot low. Now, perhaps that is what Bishop Lichbird is referring to. Statements like that from responsible leaders in our community is not helpful. I prefer to say when they go high, you go low, or keep it clean.
I'm not aware of that candidate, but perhaps you could tell me that.
Gentlemen, I really want to put it out there. When you have this high level of rhetoric, coming from candidates, coming from the parties, party officials, are we still then sort of pushing the limits of a safe election?
I also think what the esteemed bishop was referring to is the kind of newspaper advertisements where they show Nygaard painting him as the next prime minister of the Bahamas, that sort of thing. That is gutter politics. He isn't involved in this. He ain't running for no prime minister of the Bahamas. He ain't running for nothing in the Bahamas.
It seemed to me that Mr. Roberts is putting Mr. Nygaard case. That's up to him. As far as we're concerned...
I was referring to what the bishop was saying, and it's a typical one. And Sidney, you tell me whether you agree or disagree that is gutter politics.
What I'm saying
I'm not saying the FNM is doing it, but obviously some surrogates of the FNM, sympathizers, is doing it.
Let me say this, where you and I agree. On social media, PLPs, FNMs, and DNAs. DNA is the third side of the same coin.
No. The coin only have two sides.
All manner of gutter politics.
Social media is really feeding into a lot of it's feeding into a lot of issues that we're having in this election.
That's a difficult dog.
That's another show. And that too. I want to speak to that very quickly because a lot of supporters, even the parties, are utilizing the I call it new media, the digital media, social media, WhatsApp, Facebook. All of these things to really advance their messages. But in addition to that, some of the things that have come out, some of them, they call it the memes, some of the information, you have copies of checks, you have voice notes, you have all kinds of things that are just being proliferated now into the caricatures, being proliferated now into the voting populace. And to me, and I see it as sometimes igniting and inciting voters because people are so charged up about all of this.
The FNM's position is for the social media junkies, those who are FNMs and those who are not. We do not discourage it. We do not support it. We prefer the traditional mode of campaign.
What I say to Bahamians who find those memes offensive, whoever send you them, you can just cut them off.
I tell them those
you can do that, you know. But some very salacious ones, I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. And these young people, if they would use the creativity that they put into these things, into other things that could take them higher, would be to their advantage.
You know, a new term that is being created is called fake news. And so what is happening now, you find that a lot of misinformation and stuff that are based on ignorance and even stupidity, you know, all come together and try play on the minds of people to get them, you know, to see things their way.
That's an example.
And so,
Gentlemen, Go ahead. I just want to use this opportunity for us to go to the wrap now.
Okay.
Mr. Roberts, I'll start with you for our wrap-up.
I just want to make reference to your show was talking about corruption and so forth. But one of the classic case for Bahamians to remember is the sale of BTC, which was sold for $210 million. And the net effect to the Bahamian people was zero in the public treasury because the F&M government committed BTC, committed the government to paying off the pensions of those people at BTC. Then they sold it to Cable Bahamas, and Cable Bahamas in turn, a couple of years later, sold it to Liberty and had it valued at $1.4 billion. A national asset.
Sold it to Cable and Wireless.
Yes.
Sorry, you said Cable Bahamas.
Sorry, Mea culpa. Cable and Wireless sold it to Liberty at a value of between $1.3 billion and $1.49 million. You can imagine if we still had hold of that asset, the extent that we can benefit. That is a classic case of failure of the F&M that will be around the next as long as they are political parties.
Mr. Collins.
Yes, sir. And this very PLP came right behind and promised, the Prime Minister promised that they were going to buy the 2% shares, which were valued over $100 million for the Bahamian public. The Bahamian public is still waiting for evidence of the purchase of those shares in the name. Some nefarious and esoteric term of a foundation in the name of the Bahamian public. So, you know, when you're going to sweep in front of my door, check your door.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dean, you get the last comment of the night.
Yes, you know, like I said earlier, the PLP and F&M are one and the same. They believe in big government, overspending on projects, selective bidding. They're both ranking corruption, and you would never ever hear them talk about systematic changes. And so this is what the DNA is all about. We're about fixing this country. We're about changing this country. We're about creating a better life for the Bahamian people and taking them to the next level. And so I say, you know, the Bahamian people are looking for something clean, green, and pristine, and that's the DNA.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. I want to thank you for coming on tonight and certainly speaking to this very sensitive issue. It's something that has certainly been proliferated in the media quite a bit over the past few weeks, and I thank you for coming and speaking on behalf of your individual parties on your platform. So thank you very much. We appreciate you stopping by. And good luck to all of your parties in the upcoming election. As we wrap up tonight, we hope that you've enjoyed our show. Special thanks to Rudy Dean, Sidney Colley, Bradley Roberts, my producer, technical staff, and of course you, the audience, for to follow us and participate in our polls on Facebook, on The Record. We're also on Twitter and on Instagram. Give us your feedback and, of course, get in on the discussions. Tune in next time as we continue to explore the current state of politics in our country in the road to general elections. Once again, I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. We'll see you next time on The Record.